around or not, just won't let go of you. It's exhausting, isn't it? You find yourself thinking about them constantly, replaying conversations, analyzing their words, or even waiting for a message that never comes. I get it. It's hard. And it's okay to admit that. But here's something you need to hear. Emotional detachment isn't about shutting off your feelings or becoming someone you're not. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that have been consumed by someone else or by a situation that no longer serves you. It's about you, finding your peace again. In this video, we're going to talk about why emotional detachment matters, why sometimes the bravest and kindest thing you can do for yourself is to step back, let go, and create space for your own growth. The first sign that it's time to emotionally detach is when you feel drained around certain people or situations. Have you ever noticed how some interactions leave you feeling completely exhausted, as though every ounce of your emotional energy has been sucked away? This feeling goes beyond being physically tired. It's a deeper exhaustion that lingers, affecting your mood, your clarity, and even your motivation. This emotional fatigue is a clear indicator that something isn't right. It often stems from relationships or environments where there's an imbalance, where you're constantly giving but not receiving, or where your needs and emotions are overshadowed by someone else's. Over time, this imbalance takes a toll, leaving you feeling depleted and disconnected from yourself. Think about the moments when you felt this way. Maybe it's with a partner who always needs reassurance, or a friend who leans on you for emotional support without ever offering the same in return. Or perhaps it's a family member whose constant demands make you feel like you're walking on eggshells, trying not to upset them. These situations aren't just draining, they're unsustainable. One of the reasons this happens is because we often take on roles that aren't ours to fill. You might feel like it's your responsibility to fix someone else's problems, to always be there for them, or to make sure they're happy, even at the cost of your own well-being. At first, it might feel like you're being helpful or supportive. But as time goes on, it becomes clear that this dynamic is leaving you emotionally spent. It's important to recognize that this kind of exhaustion doesn't happen overnight. It builds gradually, often without you even realizing it. You might start by saying yes to small requests, thinking it's no big deal. But over time, those requests pile up, and before you know it, you're carrying a load that feels impossible to bear. The impact of this is profound. When you're constantly giving your energy to others, there's little left for yourself. You might notice that you're more irritable, less patient, or that you've lost interest in the things that used to bring you joy. Your mind might feel clouded, and tasks that once felt manageable now seem overwhelming. One clear sign of this kind of emotional drain is when you start to dread interactions with certain people or situations. You might feel a sense of relief when plans get cancelled, or notice that you're avoiding phone calls and messages. These feelings aren't random. They're your body and mind sending you a signal that something about this dynamic isn't healthy for you. The key to addressing this starts with awareness. Take a step back and reflect on your relationships and environments. Ask yourself, are there certain people or situations that leave you feeling worse after interacting with them? Are you giving more than you're receiving? Do you feel like your needs are being overlooked or dismissed? Once you've identified the source of your exhaustion, the next step is to set boundaries. Boundaries are an essential tool for protecting your emotional energy, and they're not about shutting people out. They're about creating a balance that allows you to care for others without sacrificing yourself. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to putting others' needs ahead of your own. But it's an act of self-respect and self-preservation. For example, you might decide to limit how often you engage in certain conversations or politely decline requests that feel overwhelming. These small actions can make a big difference in preserving your energy and restoring your sense of balance. In addition to setting boundaries, prioritizing self-care is crucial. Self-care isn't just about pampering yourself. It's about taking intentional steps to nurture your well-being. This could mean carving out time for activities that bring you joy, practicing mindfulness to reconnect with yourself, or simply allowing yourself to rest without guilt. Another powerful way to combat emotional exhaustion is to reconnect with your own needs and desires. When you're constantly focused on others, it's easy to lose sight of what you want and what makes you happy. Take time to reflect on the things that bring you fulfillment and make a conscious effort to incorporate them into your life. It's also helpful to surround yourself with people who uplift and energize you. Think about the relationships in your life that feel balanced and supportive. The ones where you can be yourself without fear of judgment or criticism. These connections are invaluable, and they remind you of what healthy interactions look and feel like. Remember, feeling drained isn't something you have to accept as normal. It's a signal that something in your life needs to change. And while it might feel difficult to address at first, taking steps to protect your emotional energy is one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself. The first sign, that feeling of being drained around certain people or situations, is your mind and body's way of telling you that it's time to let go. It's time to prioritize your peace and create space for the things that truly nourish your soul. By acknowledging this and taking action, you're not just detaching from what no longer serves you, you're reclaiming your power and your sense of self. When you're constantly feeling drained, it's natural to search for something or someone that will bring you relief, even if only temporarily. But what happens when your sense of happiness and self-worth becomes tied to how another person behaves? The second sign that it's time to emotionally detach is when you find your joy, or lack of it, depending on someone else's actions. Have you ever caught yourself anxiously waiting for a text, a call, or even just a sign that someone is thinking about you? It's like your entire mood can shift based on their attention, or the lack of it. When this happens, your emotional state is no longer in your control. Instead, it's being dictated by someone else's choices, leaving you in a constant cycle of anticipation and disappointment. This dependence doesn't always start in obvious ways. It might begin with small, seemingly harmless moments, like feeling validated when someone praises you or shows affection. Over time, though, these little moments can grow into a bigger pattern, where your happiness hinges on external validation instead of internal peace. You might find yourself chasing approval, needing reassurance, or feeling uneasy whenever that connection is missing. For many, this dynamic stems from a deeper need to feel seen, valued, or loved. It's not uncommon to look for these feelings in someone else when they're hard to find within yourself. However, when someone else becomes the source of your self-worth, the balance tips. You may start prioritizing their needs and their attention over your own sense of identity without even realizing it. Living in this cycle can be exhausting. One moment, you're on a high because they've made you feel important, and the next, you're questioning your worth because they've pulled away. These emotional highs and lows are not just draining, they can also leave you feeling trapped. It becomes easy to forget that your happiness is supposed to come from within, not from someone else's words or actions. One telltale sign of this pattern is when you start doubting yourself because of how someone else treats you. Perhaps you question whether you're good enough, or you overanalyze every little interaction, trying to figure out what you did wrong. This kind of self-doubt isn't reflective of who you are. It's a byproduct of placing too much emotional power in someone else's hands. To begin detaching from this pattern, the first step is to bring the focus back to yourself. Start by asking, what am I seeking from this person that I'm not giving to myself? Are you looking for validation, reassurance, love? Recognizing these needs helps you understand that they're not weaknesses. They're opportunities for self-discovery and growth. Building emotional independence is key to breaking free from this dynamic. One way to do this is by setting small, personal goals that aren't tied to anyone else's approval. These could be as simple as trying a new hobby, making time for yourself each day, or celebrating your achievements, no matter how small. Every step you take toward nurturing yourself builds your confidence and reduces the need for external validation. It's also helpful to shift your perspective on relationships. Instead of viewing someone as the source of your happiness, think of them as a part of your life, not the center of it. This doesn't mean you care any less. It simply means you're creating space for your own emotional well-being alongside your connections with others. Another important practice is mindfulness. When you notice your emotions spiraling because of someone else's actions, take a moment to pause. Breathe deeply and remind yourself that their behavior doesn't define your worth. Mindfulness allows you to create a gap between their actions and your reactions, giving you the power to choose how you feel instead of letting those emotions control you. Finally, surround yourself with activities and people who uplift you without conditions. Think about the last time you did something purely for your own happiness, something that wasn't influenced by anyone else. Maybe it was reading a book, going for a walk, or spending time with a supportive friend. These moments of self-care and joy are reminders that your happiness is yours to create, not something you have to wait for from someone else. When you start to untangle your emotions from someone else's actions, you're taking a step toward freedom. It's not an easy process, but it's one of the most empowering changes you can make. Reclaiming control of your happiness allows you to build a stronger foundation within yourself, one that no one else can shake. When you find yourself relying on someone else for your happiness, it's easy to get caught in a pattern of overthinking. That's where the third sign comes in. You constantly replay conversations or scenarios in your mind. This isn't just a fleeting thought here or there. It's an endless loop that keeps you stuck, draining your energy and stealing your peace. There's a moment when it starts. Maybe it was something they said, or perhaps it was a situation that didn't go the way you'd hoped. And suddenly, you're analyzing every word, every gesture, trying to decode their intent or figure out if you did something wrong. This mental replay doesn't bring clarity. Instead, it ties you to the past, making it impossible to move forward. What makes this cycle so difficult is how subtle it can be at first. You might start with a harmless "what if?" and before you know it, you're replaying the same situation in your head for hours, dissecting every detail. It's like running a race where the finish line keeps moving. You never get any closer to an answer, but you keep running anyway. This behavior often stems from a need for control. When something feels unresolved or unclear, your mind tries to fill in the gaps by creating possible explanations. But these imagined scenarios don't provide the resolution you're looking for. Instead, they leave you feeling more anxious and stuck in a spiral of doubt and uncertainty. One of the biggest challenges of constantly replaying conversations is how much it takes away from the present moment. While your mind is stuck in the past, life is moving forward without you. You miss opportunities to engage with what's happening now because you're so focused on what's already happened or on what you fear might happen next. For some, this pattern becomes so ingrained that it feels like a natural part of life. You might even convince yourself that overthinking is helping you prepare or avoid future mistakes. But in reality, this habit often creates more stress, making it harder to trust yourself or your instincts. Breaking free from this mental replay starts with awareness. The next time you catch yourself obsessing over a past conversation, ask yourself, is this helping me or is it holding me back? Recognizing the difference is the first step to interrupting the cycle. Another helpful technique is to shift your focus outward. When your mind is stuck in overdrive, engaging in something physical or creative can help ground you in the present. Go for a walk, listen to music, or write down your thoughts. These activities can act as a reset, giving your brain the space it needs to let go. Mindfulness is another powerful tool. When you find yourself replaying scenarios, take a few deep breaths and bring your attention to what's happening around you. What do you see, hear, or feel in this moment? Redirecting your focus can help quiet the noise in your mind and remind you that the present is where your power lies. It's also important to challenge the stories your mind creates. Often, the scenarios we replay are filled with assumptions and what-ifs that may not even be true. Ask yourself, do I know this for a fact, or am I imagining possibilities? This simple question can help you separate reality from the stories your mind is crafting. As you work on breaking free from this pattern, remember to be kind to yourself. It's easy to get frustrated when you realize how much time you've spent stuck in your thoughts. But detaching from these mental loops isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each time you choose to redirect your focus, you're taking a step toward greater peace and freedom. When you let go of the need to replay conversations or scenarios, you're not just breaking a habit, you're reclaiming your time, your energy, and your presence. When your mind is stuck replaying conversations, it's often because you're searching for answers, trying to hold on to something that feels uncertain. This brings us to the fourth sign. You fear losing the relationship despite the pain it causes. Even when the connection feels like it's draining or hurting you, the thought of letting go is terrifying, as though you might lose a part of yourself in the process. Fear of loss can feel all-encompassing. It lingers in the background, influencing your decisions and making you cling to something that may no longer serve you. You convince yourself that holding on is better than the unknown, even when the reality is filled with tension, disappointment, or emotional pain. This fear isn't just about the other person. It's about the stories you've told yourself about what their presence means to you. Sometimes, this fear is tied to the way you've defined the relationship. You might see this person as the one who completes you, or the only source of a particular kind of love or validation. The idea of losing them feels like losing access to those things, making it harder to imagine a life without them, even when that life might bring more peace. This dynamic often leads to a dangerous pattern. You start to minimize the pain the relationship causes. You rationalize behaviors that hurt you, excusing actions that you'd never tolerate from anyone else. Instead of addressing your feelings, you might suppress them, prioritizing the connection over your emotional well-being. It becomes a trade-off where you accept discomfort in exchange for avoiding the fear of loss. The fear of letting go can also stem from a sense of familiarity. Even when a relationship is painful, it might feel safer to stay because it's what you know. The unknown, life without this person, can feel daunting, as though stepping into it might mean loneliness, failure, or regret. This fear often clouds the reality that letting go could bring new opportunities, healing, and clarity. Another layer to this fear is the belief that you might never find something or someone better. This belief can trap you in a cycle of self-doubt, where you question your worth and convince yourself that this connection is as good as it gets. The thought of starting over seems overwhelming, so you stay, hoping that things will improve, even if the pain persists. This kind of attachment isn't about love, it's about fear. It's the fear of change, of uncertainty, of stepping into the unknown. And while those feelings are valid, they don't have to dictate your choices. Recognizing this fear is the first step toward breaking its hold. To begin addressing this, reflect on what you're truly afraid of losing. Is it the person themselves? Or is it the sense of comfort, identity, or validation they provide. Understanding this distinction can help you see that what you're clinging to might not be the relationship itself, but what it represents to you. Start to challenge the belief that letting go is the same as failing. Letting go doesn't mean you've given up, or that the connection wasn't meaningful. It means you're choosing yourself, your peace, your growth, and your happiness, over the pain of staying stuck. It's also helpful to surround yourself with reminders of your strength. Think about the challenges you've overcome in the past, or the times when you've faced change head-on and emerged stronger. These moments are proof that you're capable of navigating uncertainty, even when it feels overwhelming. Finally, consider what life could look like beyond this fear. Imagine the freedom of waking up without the weight of a painful relationship holding you down. Picture yourself exploring new connections, rediscovering your passions, and building a life that feels fulfilling on your terms. This vision isn't just a dream. It's a possibility that starts with the courage to let go. Fearing the loss of a relationship, even when it causes pain, can leave you clinging to something that no longer nurtures you. But over time, this fear may lead to something even deeper, the feeling that you've lost yourself in the process. The fifth sign that it's time to emotionally detach is when you no longer recognize who you are outside of the relationship. Sometimes, this feeling creeps in quietly. You might stop prioritizing the things you once loved or push aside your goals to focus entirely on the other person. Maybe you used to have hobbies that made you feel alive, or dreams that kept you motivated. Now, those parts of you feel like distant memories, buried under the weight of someone else's expectations or needs. Losing yourself often begins with small compromises. At first, it might feel natural to adjust your life to fit someone else's. You cancel plans with friends to spend more time with them. You change the way you dress or talk because it makes them happy. These adjustments seem harmless, even loving, until they start to chip away at your identity. Over time, these small sacrifices can add up, leaving you feeling like a shadow of who you used to be. You might wake up one day and realize that your decisions, your routines, and even your values are no longer entirely your own. The things that used to define you, your passions, your independence, your sense of self, have been replaced by the needs and desires of the relationship. For many, this happens gradually. It's not as if you suddenly decide to abandon your identity. It's more like a slow drift. Each compromise feels like a way to keep the relationship intact, but in the process, you lose touch with the things that make you unique. This can leave you feeling unfulfilled, disconnected, and unsure of who you are. One clear indicator of this is when you find it hard to make decisions without the other person's input. Even small choices, what to eat, what to wear, how to spend your free time, start to feel impossible without their opinion or approval. This dependency can make it difficult to trust your own instincts, further distancing you from the confident, independent person you once were. Another sign is when you notice that your relationships with others have started to fade. Friendships, family connections, and even your relationship with yourself take a back seat to the one you're clinging to. The time and energy you use to invest in these bonds are redirected, leaving you feeling isolated and overly reliant on a single connection for emotional support. To rediscover yourself, the first step is to reflect on who you were before the relationship took center stage. Think about the things that used to bring you joy, the goals you once pursued, and the parts of your personality that felt most authentic. These pieces of you are still there. They've just been buried under the weight of compromise and dependency. Start reconnecting with yourself by making time for the things that light you up. Revisit an old hobby, spend time with supportive friends, or explore something new that sparks your curiosity. These activities are more than distractions. They're tools for rebuilding your sense of self and reminding you of the person you are outside of the relationship. It's also important to practice making decisions independently. Start small. Choose how you spend a day off, try a new activity, or set a personal goal. Each time you make a choice for yourself, you're strengthening your confidence and reclaiming your independence. Another way to find your way back to yourself is to reflect on your values. What matters most to you? What kind of life do you want to create? These questions can help guide your decisions and remind you of the foundation you want to build your identity upon. Reconnecting with yourself doesn't mean you have to cut ties with the relationship immediately. It's about creating space within the connection to prioritize your needs and regain your sense of self. This might mean setting boundaries, rediscovering your passions, or simply taking time for self-reflection. When you feel like you've lost yourself in a relationship, it's not too late to find your way back. The person you were, the person you are, is still there, waiting to be rediscovered. When you feel like you've lost yourself in a relationship, the path forward might seem unclear. But that's where the next step begins, finding practical ways to emotionally detach and reclaim your independence. Detachment isn't about shutting off your feelings or walking away without thought. It's about creating balance, setting boundaries, and rediscovering who you are. It's not an overnight process, but each small action brings you closer to freedom and peace. The first step is to shift the focus back to yourself. When you've spent so much time prioritizing someone else's needs, it can feel foreign to think about your own. Start by asking yourself simple but profound questions. What do I want? What do I need right now? These aren't selfish questions. They're the foundation for rebuilding a life where your emotions and well-being come first. One way to begin detaching is by setting clear boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They're guidelines that protect your energy and mental health. For example, if you've been constantly available to someone who drains you, consider limiting how often you respond to their messages or calls. If a conversation starts to feel overwhelming, it's okay to step away. These small but intentional actions signal to yourself and to others that your peace matters. Journaling is another powerful tool in this process. Writing down your thoughts helps you process emotions that might feel tangled or overwhelming. Start by reflecting on the moments when you feel most drained or stuck. What triggers those feelings? What patterns do you notice? Putting these thoughts on paper can bring clarity and help you see where adjustments are needed. Reconnecting with your sense of self is also essential. Think back to a time when you felt confident and fulfilled. What were you doing? Who were you surrounded by? Often, emotional detachment requires revisiting the passions and values that have been set aside. If you loved painting, running, or spending time outdoors, find ways to bring those activities back into your routine. They're not just hobbies, they're pieces of your identity. Another practical step is to practice mindfulness. Emotional detachment often feels difficult because your mind is stuck in the past or future. What happened? What could have been? Or what might happen next? Mindfulness anchors you in the present. It could be as simple as focusing on your breath, noticing the sensations around you, or taking a moment to appreciate something small, like the warmth of the sun or the taste of your favorite tea. Surrounding yourself with supportive people can also make a significant difference. Emotional detachment doesn't mean isolating yourself. In fact, it often involves leaning on healthy connections. Reach out to friends or loved ones who uplift and energize you. These relationships remind you of your worth and show you what balanced mutual support looks like. As you work on detaching, it's important to challenge the stories you've been telling yourself. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you need this person to feel happy, or that letting go means failure. These beliefs aren't truths, they're fears. question them. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me, or is it holding me back? Reframing these narratives helps you take control of your emotions and rewrite your perspective. Visualization is another powerful tool. Picture your life without the emotional weight you've been carrying. Imagine waking up with a sense of lightness, feeling free to make choices that align with your happiness. This mental exercise isn't just wishful thinking. It's a way to train your mind to see what's possible beyond attachment. Developing self-compassion is also vital in this process. Emotional detachment can bring up feelings of guilt or self-criticism. You might think, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did I let it get this far? But remember, detachment is a journey, not a destination. Treat yourself with kindness, acknowledging that every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. Another key aspect of detachment is reducing reliance on external validation. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeking approval from others, especially when you've been deeply connected to someone. Instead, start finding ways to validate yourself. Celebrate your achievements, no matter how minor they may seem. Remind yourself of your strengths and what makes you unique. As you take these steps, there will be moments of discomfort. Emotional detachment requires stepping outside of your comfort zone and challenging patterns that may have felt familiar for years. But discomfort is a sign of growth. It means you're moving towards something better, even if it feels uncertain at first. Most importantly, be patient with yourself. Detachment doesn't happen all at once, and it's okay to have setbacks. What matters is that you keep moving forward, one intentional choice at a time. As you begin taking practical steps toward emotional detachment, a shift starts to happen. You begin to realize that letting go isn't about losing, it's about gaining something far more valuable: emotional freedom. This freedom isn't just about breaking ties with someone or something that no longer serves you. It's about reclaiming control over your life and your happiness. Emotional freedom allows you to wake up without the weight of someone else's influence on your mood or self-worth. It's the space to breathe deeply, make decisions with clarity, and feel a sense of peace that doesn't rely on external factors. It's a kind of liberation that lets you reconnect with who you are at your core, separate from the roles or expectations others may have placed on you. For many, this freedom begins with small but meaningful realizations. You might notice how much lighter you feel when you spend time doing something for yourself, without worrying about how someone else will perceive it. You start to trust your instincts again, rediscovering the confidence to make choices that align with your values and desires. Emotional freedom also brings a renewed sense of energy. When you're no longer tied to the emotional ups and downs of someone else's actions, you have more space for things that truly matter to you. The hobbies you once loved, the dreams you put on hold, and the relationships that uplift you suddenly feel closer and more accessible. In this newfound space, you start to see yourself differently. Instead of defining yourself through the lens of others, you begin to appreciate your own resilience and strength. You realize that you've made it through challenges you once thought were impossible, and you carry those lessons with you as a reminder of what you're capable of. This freedom doesn't mean you stop caring for others. It means you've learned how to care for yourself too. You understand that your well-being is just as important as the connections you share. With this balance, your relationships become healthier, built on mutual respect and understanding rather than dependency or sacrifice. There's also a quiet power in knowing that you can handle life's uncertainties without fear of losing yourself. Emotional freedom isn't about avoiding attachments altogether. It's about approaching them with clarity and confidence, knowing that you are whole and complete on your own. As you embrace this freedom, you may find yourself drawn to new possibilities. Perhaps it's exploring a passion you've always dreamed of pursuing, or simply savoring the peace that comes with no longer being tied to something that held you back. Emotional freedom gives you the courage to take those steps, knowing that your happiness is firmly in your hands.